inverse of a relation and a function, and graphing it and solving for it and everything like that. Okay, so in the first example, let's try to solve each equation for y. Because to solve for the inverse, you basically switch x and y and then solve for y. So let's start off with this part. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply by 5 to get rid of the 5 on the denominator. So that's going to give me 5x equals, and then this will just be 4y plus 1. And then I'm going to move the negative 1 over. And I'm also going to divide by 4 to isolate for y. Okay? Let's try this one. So x equals 2y squared plus 1. So in this one, I'm going to move the the negative, or the 1 over, make it negative 1. Have that be 2y squared. And then I'm going to divide by 2. And then I'm going to square root it. So remember, the square root will give me plus or minus x minus 1 over 2 is equal to y. Okay, now let's try this one. So let's isolate for y. So the first thing I'm going to do is make the minus 3 come to the other side by doing plus 3. So x plus 3 is equal to 1/2 y minus 1 squared. So now I'm going to multiply the whole thing, or basically I can just divide by 1/2. So if I divide by 1/2, that's basically going to make it multiply by 2. So it's going to be 2x plus 3 brackets is equal to, I'm just going to get rid of this, y minus 1 squared. And then now to solve for y, I'm going to square root both sides. Okay, and then the last step would be to subtract a 1. So it'd be plus or minus square root 2x plus 3 plus 1 is equal to y. Okay, good. So that's background. So now let's try actually doing the inverse. So for y is equal to 3x minus 6, to find the inverse, we basically take the original function and then switch the x and y. So it would become like x is equal to 3y minus 6, and then it's going to be x plus 6 is equal to 3y, and then x plus 6 divided by 3 will be equal to y. And then this is just the same thing as saying x over 3 plus 6 over 3, which is just 2. So I'll just write 2 is equal to y. So this is the slope, and this is the y-intercept. So now let's graph both of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Minus 6 is here. And then the slope is plus 3 for the original function. So that's that function. And then let's graph the inverse in this color. So this is going to be plus 2 and then x over 3. So we're going to go like this. Up, like right or left 3, up 1, because the slope is like 1 over 3. Okay, so that would be the inverse. Okay, now let's try graphing y is equal to 2x to the 3, and let me just write it like this, y equals 2x to the 3 minus 3 and its inverse, and what the domain and range for this function are. Okay, so again, same step as before to find inverse of the function. We take the x and the y and we switch it, so inverse would be x is equal to 2y squared minus 3. Make it x plus 3 is equal to 2y squared. Divide by 2. And then square root it to solve for the y. Okay. So that's the equation for the function. So now try this. So if we have the function here, and we graph the original function, so I'll graph that. So this is going to be minus 3 is like the origin, or like the vertex, and then stretch of 2 to left or right 2. Instead of up 4, it will be up 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it will look like this for the original function. And then now to graph the inverse, which is a little bit tricky. You can use like a table of values almost. So basically when x is greater than 0, so for like this section of the graph, it's going to be when this is like positive, right? So what that means and what that looks like is when x is greater than or equal to 0, we get plus x plus 3 over 2 is equal to y. And then you can just make a little table of values for that. And it would basically be like we just take all of the x values and plug it in. So some of the points that we would get would be like minus 3 comma 0. And I'll graph it in a different color. Negative 1 comma 1. 5 comma 2. And so on. So it would be like this. And then when x is less than 0 or equal to 0, then it's just going to be the negative x plus 3 over 2 is equal to y. Because remember, when we square root something, you get plus and negative. So some of the points for that one will be minus 1 comma 1, 1 comma, or no, it would be 1 comma minus 1, or like, no, let's use 5 comma negative 2. So 5 comma negative 2, and yeah, it'd be like this. Okay, perfect.